Hey everybody, this is Taylor with Top Pick Trading. Want to give you guys your Friday bar by bar. Hope you guys had a good trading day. Um, a lot slower day today than yesterday, that's for sure, but there were still a couple decent trades. Um, not as many as yesterday, but let's get started on the bar by bar. So 8 o'clock Eastern comes right in this area here. So you'd come in and you would draw your microstructures so far. So we had this trend down, maybe a little small break and new low, but then this move up here with a break and a couple legs to a new high. So we're going to see what happens at the EMA or see if we just reverse here. So you had this strong bearish bar here after two legs up, and it sold off pretty strongly with some follow through, and you can see it pushed right through that EMA. So we draw our micro trend here, pushes strongly, and then now actually just straight up reverses. Kind of hard to know what's going on here. Make this bigger. Maybe some bigger structure like this. We'll watch this for now. It actually is holding pretty well. And we push higher, come back to the EMA. We get a first entry. We didn't quite get to the highs here, but let's see if we can get a nice second entry confirming this wider uptrend. And we do get a signal bar for a second entry potentially, but it's not any good. It's a little congested, and it's just a doji. So no setup there that we'd want to take. And you can see it does have some follow through before coming back to the EMA once more, maybe a higher low, but I'd be a little wary just because of the congestion. And there's a signal bar potentially, and it continues lower, so no setup anyway. And now we get the higher low, but notice we close below the EMA, and there's some definite congestion there. So, and it's breaking this trend line. So I don't think there's a setup here to take. It would have worked, but no way of knowing that. And here's the open here. Come back to the EMA. Looks like maybe we're in a small range here now. So it pushes higher. Maybe we can get a second entry long at support here. Let's see how it looks. And it does push lower here. And kind of no man's land. Maybe it can come a little lower. And it doesn't. Pushes right up to the highs again. We traded up into this range. EMA is somewhat holding, so I'd be wary of taking a triple test short just yet, especially after three strong bullish bars. And it pushes higher anyway. Maybe the range is a little bit higher like this. And this micro trend looks like it has a break in new extreme. And we get a second entry short here, but notice it's making a new high. Notice the higher lows. We traded up into this area, so I wouldn't short this. And it would have worked, but no way of knowing that at the time. Still making higher lows here. Maybe something like this, but it really just looks more rangy, so I'd keep it like that for now. And it does push higher. Let's draw our micro trends here. We got a small break and new low. Looks like maybe barely there, but either way, we've retraced so much of that little micro move that it's pushing higher now, and we got a micro trend working. And you can see the support this resistance just keeps barely pushing higher and higher. And we sell off strongly here. No signal bar anyway. The bar's bad. Sells off very strongly. Back to the support. Let's see if the support holds. We can consider some kind of long if we get a second entry that shakes off some of this momentum of this micro downtrend. Instead, it just kind of finds that low and doesn't really reject off of it. Pushes a lot lower now. There is a break and new low, it appears. We've got like a failed break lower here on a second entry long. Personally, I'd probably want this a little bit lower. This move was also fairly strong. I know it has a break and new low, but lots of consecutive bear bars here. We may get two legs down to a new low rather than just this small one. And it doesn't trigger anyway. The next bar is not any good. And there you go. There's the second leg down. No setup for a failed break lower. And now you can see we bounced in this general area, so you may want to expand your range. And that actually fits pretty well. So it looks like we're coming off a major support level. We'll push back down now. Higher low, but equal low there. You can see it rockets higher. If we got a better bar right here, you could probably consider it, but I really don't like that you have an equal low here and it's closing right into the EMA with some wick. Pushes strongly to the upside, back up to this range resistance. Let's see if the resistance holds. We may consider some kind of lower high, but this needs to have a break and new high from this micro trend first. And instead it pushes straight through it. Get the first break here. Micro move back to the EMA. Let's see what happens at the EMA. We get a first entry. Actually, it doesn't trigger, so no first entry. Now we get the first entry. Now we get a second entry long. If this broke lower, then push back up through. Problem is, it's a doji right into this resistance area, so I don't think you want to take that. And you can see it rejects off that resistance. In general, it's a little bit higher, but it's still doing that. It's just making a little bit higher highs, but the general area is still holding. And you get a visual second entry long now. This was the technical second entry, but now you get another one, but bad bar anyway. And now we push up, get this turn off of the resistance, but it's fighting between that EMA and the resistance, and this may get a more significant retest here. It pushes higher again. It appears this range resistance is still just barely higher now. Just keeps pushing higher. So no setup here. You're fighting in this area between the EMA and the range resistance. And now we do the same thing. We've also got another little mini range here, I'd say. We push up back up to that resistance, and you can see now bears are not, for a third time now, bears are not able to sell it back off to the major support area. So we may be regaining a bias, but still no setups in this area. We get a higher low here, but right into that resistance. It's kind of like I wouldn't really consider it a breakout pullback actually, because it's really forming inside of the small range more. Push out. We get technically a failed second entry short, but you know, you're just trading out of this range. This has basically a retest now. Bar's not strong anyway. And the EMA is not really, it is showing some support, but it's not really rejecting prices yet. So let's just keep waiting. And it does work, pushes strongly to the upside. There seems to be some kind of small little trend working here. So if I can get it colored. There we go. Chop sideways, just floating well above the EMA. Get this lower high, straighten congestion, and right into the key entry point. Drops below the EMA slightly. We get a first entry long. Notice the 4 strong bearish bars. And also note that this was a retest leg, so it may not get a retest. Plus, it didn't really have that much strength. You can see the angle of the trend's pretty shallow. It's a lower angle, so basically the range could take back precedence, and this could just be a failed breakout. So let's see. And we get this potential signal bar for a second entry long, but like I mentioned, this is the retest leg. Bar's not all that strong. It's closing below the EMA anyway, so you may want to wait on that one. And now you get a failure, but it's very sideways. It's right in this area between the EMA and the previous range highs, so I think you probably want to wait again. It would have worked, but you don't know that. Pushes back here, not quite at the support area. Starts pushing higher again right off that opening price. Draw your micro uptrend here. Doesn't appear to be. I'd be looking for a bigger structure here. Something like this maybe. Doesn't appear to be that. We may come back down one more time and confirm that area. But for now, we just know it's overall bullish, kind of a shallow angled uptrend potentially. So you get a higher low here, very far above the EMA, so no trade there. And it's just continually pushing higher. You can see we're still essentially in this micro uptrend structure. So you just need to wait for it to come back to the EMA. And we get a break, new high from that. Now we're turning off, or we're at this range resistance, or this, channel line of the potential trend channel. It's not confirmed yet, but you've got 2 touches on the bottom, kind of 2 touches on top, and then potentially a third here. And you can see, like I mentioned yesterday, you do have this little gap here that's right in this area, this closed gap. So maybe this trend line's correct. Let's see. Well, it ends up blowing right through it, so You've got the breaking new high from this now, but look how bullish it still is. I'd wait, and maybe there's some wider variation here. It's drawn off that first break, so I don't trust it quite as much. Either way, even if you do have it, it's also now got a breaking new high. Just pushing higher, just no setup so far from the EMA. Coming back to the EMA now. You can see everything's played out. I mean, you could draw some little spiking channel here, but this is almost just like a little retest leg in and of itself, starting so high in the structure. So this could all be over. Let's see what happens at the EMA. No first entry yet. You get a first entry here, very sideways. And now you get a second entry. This is a pretty strong move here. It never, notice though, it never actually tested that EMA throughout the entire thing. So this could be kind of like an exhaustive leg. We've never gotten EMA confirmation here. Plus this closed below the EMA. It's forming right into it. It's a good bar that is closing right on it, but it's a pretty good bar. It is a second entry long. Personally, I waited on this. I think it's just a little bit too aggressive. Maybe we can push strongly above, come back and get a higher low, and actually get some EMA confirmation because we haven't gotten it during this whole uptrend. Would have worked for a small little scalp. Now we push strongly. Let's see if we can get a higher low that forms nicely here. Right here at that EMA with maybe a nice lower wick. And we don't. It just plummets straight through. So if you took a smaller scalp, you would have gotten that. But like I mentioned, I'd probably wait on that. Now we're pushing strongly to the downside. And I also wanted to point out, you'd be kind of looking at, I like to look at some of the previous day levels. And if you look, this turned literally to the tick off the close of 2 days ago. So those areas are important, even if they're from several days ago. Lots of orders are in those areas, so just keep that in mind. We push lower here. This could have been a little bit of a wider channel potentially, maybe something a little bit wider like that. Now it's got a break and a few legs down, and this is a really strong move in and of itself, so I'd probably draw that too. But it also appears like it's got a break and new low as well. We bounce here. It looks like that wider uptrend had an overshoot, like I said. So the structure is not all that obvious. We just know we're in an uptrend, and the tighter uptrends have played out. Maybe you want to draw something like this now as well, just to keep it in mind. But it also appears like it would have an overshoot, so I won't even bother doing that. We come back to the EMA. We get a bearish bar. It's turned here twice, right here, and then here again. It pushes lower, just a first entry though. Finding some support here. We get another first entry. It appears everything's played out. This feels a bit wide. Bottom doesn't fit well at all, so I'd probably avoid drawing that. We got a higher low here, but the EMA has held now. We didn't push strongly above right here, so I'd be worried of taking a higher low like that. Let's see if we turn at this general resistance area. And actually here, all in one bar, it formed, pushed lower, forming a triple test and a second entry short, and then you can see how quickly they bought that up. It's probably going to trap bears, or yeah, probably going to trap bears. But this little micro uptrend to me is just not all that obvious. It also kind of looks like it could be this with a break and new high. It's kind of forming far from the EMA, and notice that setup bar is the wrong color. So if you're taking this for a small scalp, maybe you can consider it. But for me, the local price action just isn't quite good enough to support it. It looks like it would have worked. And now that it just kept pushing this much higher, it probably is after the fact. This slightly wider variation here, but it's also got a break and new high. So let's see what happens here with this bearish bar. Pushes back up one more time and sells off. Really kind of hard to know what's going on here. Nothing's immediately obvious. You can see we're turning at this area here, so maybe there's some small range, and you can see that midline fits really well. So we'll consider this range for now. See if I can delete that red bar there. All right, so we come off that resistance. We've got some micro trend working here. It's kind of weird looking, but we'll keep it going. And it actually holds. Maybe a small break there, something like this. Oops. Probably just expecting it to return to support. Maybe we can get some kind of long. This looks a little odd, but maybe some long. We push higher, kind of mid-range, and then it gets rejected strongly. Just chopping lower. And you can see here we get it's not a second entry long technically, but it is a touch off of the support. I'm a little wary of it because I feel like it could maybe get a little bit lower with a nice, a little bit better wick. We've got 3 bearish bars here, closing on or near their low. But it's a low risk bar, 6 ticks. This is clearly played out. I just wish I wish it was closing a little bit lower. But if you want to consider that for the risk size, I will mark it aggressive, just because the more bearish stuff has played out, the structure has played out, and we're near the support, almost at it. So good setup and signal bar as well. So you can see it reverses, and then it pushes back up to the EMA, so it looks like you would have gotten your scalp. So that's a decent trade. I mean, for the risk, I understand taking that. We get a higher low here, but we're back into the middle of this range. If we draw our micro trends, you know, it's not immediately obvious that it's this. We only got 2 bullish bars before reversing, and notice it's turning right at that midline where we turned here and here. Actually turned here again, it just turned into a trap, but we've been turning at this area, so I personally think it's moved a bit far from these range lows to be able to consider this higher low. Backs up here, now it's getting congested. Now we get a failure. Still, I just think it's too high. It's a little bit congested, and this micro uptrend is just not obvious to me. It feels more like it's a break in new extreme. And trading failures mid-range can really come back to bite you. So I think you got to wait on this. Would have worked maybe for a small scalp. Comes back, turns here. So now we've come up short of that range high twice. Let's see what happens. Chop sideways. Maybe it can come back to support. Just chopping sideways. Pushes strongly now to the upside. Turns off this area, but then immediately rejects. Push back up. Now we're getting a second leg. So we've got one leg up here, and up here's a second leg. Let's see if we can complete that measure move, and maybe we can consider a short. We technically traded down into this range starting here, and you can see this area now has rejected prices strongly twice, right here and right here. So this is extremely just range behavior. Big down, big up, big down, and now 2 legs up. So I know that the overall structure is bullish, but it's been ranging now for several hours, so we can consider some kind of short if we get a good bar up here. And if you did widen this, thinking it's, you know, maybe it's a little bit wider, that doesn't fit perfectly, but good enough. Either way, now you've got a break, 2-legged correction, and now it looks like maybe 2 legs up to a new high. And we do complete that measured move here, and notice we get this really nice bar. This is basically a double bottom, so it's a second entry. It's the retest leg as well. If you wanted to draw that retest leg, it does fit okay. So maybe that scares you off from it, but personally, clearly 2 legs in range structure to a resistance area, very far from that EMA, completing the measured move. You do have a couple bullish bars in a row, but these aren't all that strong here. It's a little bit congested, and it's kind of like a failed breakout from that little area, right at that resistance. So I like this trade. I took this one personally. See, it pushes back to that EMA. You would have gotten a smaller scalp there. Let's see. Lower high, unfortunately, doesn't form. So you'd have to take this one if you wanted to get in it. To get in this move, the lower high is a bullish bar. And there you go. You would have gotten out at the midline. Chopping lower. Looks like maybe we've got a break in new extreme from that. So maybe we can consider some long off the support area. Just chopping sideways. And notice that EMA and midline held. And now you get 3 strong bearish bars. So this makes me a little bit scared unless we get clear rejection here and maybe it comes back and gets a higher low. As it is right now, I'd be a little more scared because just take notice of how these ranges behave when they bounce at the support and resistance. You get a leg down from the resistance. It pushes above the EMA and the midline and then gets the new low, then bounces. Same here. Pushes above the EMA on a micro trend, and then on the break does the same thing as the last time, but in the opposite direction. Pushes below the EMA and the midline, then gets the retest. This is healthier range behavior. The midline here and the EMA holding on the second leg down is a little bit riskier. And you can see we don't get a good bar anyway. And there it goes. It plummets. So that's just one of the clues you can kind of take note of when you're looking in a range. You could expect that a little bit more when behavior like this happens in the middle, and we get a pretty significant push here. I'd be looking, it looks like an overshoot from it. I'd be looking for a measured move on this range. We didn't quite get there. Let's see if we get another leg down. We sell off here on the first entry short, and we get a higher low here. Really nice bar. I really wish that this leg had gotten to the measured move, and this higher low was a bit lower with more room. It is pretty far, so if you're really expecting that range to hold, I understand taking this trade. Personally, a bit risky for me. This leg right here also fits pretty well, so you may get a retest on this leg in and of itself. So a little risky for me, but I understand if you took it. Looks like it would have worked. Back to the EMA at least. Chopping higher. Maybe some micro trend like this. And since this had an overshoot and we didn't reach that measured move, maybe bulls are coming back in. We'll see. We get a technical failure here, but notice how it's kind of forming right on the EMA. It didn't clearly push above and come back and test it. And also we didn't reach these the trend line highs of this blue micro uptrend here. So I think that's a little bit risky as well. And you can see, I think if I remember this in real time, it broke higher, then pushed lower, would have stopped you out, and then came back. So this is technically a second entry long, but it's right into those highs. And also, you got to be worried about this range low acting as resistance now. Chops higher, you got another higher low, but still right into that range low area. It would have stopped you out if you took the higher low. And the second entry long would have worked, but you don't know that at the time. So now this has a break and new high back inside the range pretty clearly. And that's actually past 330. So and if you see the rest of the day, chopped a little bit higher, two-legged correction. Oops, found some support in this area a little bit below the range lows, and then got another leg up to a new high. So not many setups today. I just saw two, and then a couple aggressive, maybe potential entries. But out of the main two, you had this nice entry, a little bit aggressive still. This long off the support triple test, and then in my opinion, you had this second entry short, triple test short, right off the range high. So I think that's probably the trade of the day there, in my opinion. So yeah, just not many opportunities today, but if you were patient, there was a couple good range moves you could take advantage of. So hope you guys have a good long weekend. We'll be back next week. Remember, no trading on Monday for Memorial Day. So everybody have a good holiday weekend, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.